Picture this. You've just moved into a new place and want to hang a TV, but you don't have any tools. So you're in your friend or neighbor or your uncle's closet searching for an underused tool chest. You open a box, and in it you find a camera from a bygone time. It's not quite vintage, but being a capital P photographer, you have an inescapable need to rescue it. You ask if you can have it, and they say,
"Oh, that old thing? I bought it at Kmart in 2005 for a family vacation. Took 3 blurry photos. Take it if you want."
"Congratulations, you've just rescued a dirt camera. Maybe it's a Nikon D70, right?"
Released in 2004 as a sub-$1,000 camera, the D70 was Nikon's first foray into the enthusiast digital camera market. It shares the same DNA as Nikon's own film SLR, the N80, and was sold as a direct competitor to the Canon 300D. Nowadays, this camera is so worthless you can pick one up for about $50 with a lens. Now, then why would I think that this terrible low-res camera of drinking age is one of the best low-budget DSLRs out there? Well, you're watching this video to find out. Like most D70s, mine arrived midway through returning to primordial goo. Now, this was easily fixed with some good old isopropyl alcohol and a little bit of scrubbing, and there were basically no other issues than a single dead pixel I didn't discover until months of use. Being F-mount means that the lenses for this camera are pretty cheap and plentiful. I already own some screw drive Nikon lenses for my Nikon F4, which the D70 is compatible with. Having that autofocus support helps since the D70's viewfinder looks like this. Yeah, the mirror might be comically full frame size, but trying to manually focus through this thing isn't ideal. Another nice bit of support is the ability for it to take SD cards via an adapter. For CF card cameras, that's not always a given, so it's always a nice to have. As far as specs go, it has an impressive minimum shutter speed of 1/8,000th of a second, maxing out at 30 seconds, and around 240-ish seconds in bulb mode with a remote. Its base ISO is 200, going all the way up to the scary heights of 1,600. Not that you would ever want to use it that high. Anyway, at the time of release, the D70 had some pretty positive reviews. One particular unnamed reviewer stating, "The Nikon D70 is the second best digital camera I have ever owned. I love my D70 to death. The D70 is my top suggestion if you want an advanced camera and are concerned about price, size, weight, and battery life. The D70 has much longer battery life than the power-sucking D200. Which I agree with, given the D70 and what came before it did the classic thing of transitioning from a film camera to a digital camera. I'm very happy for her. Battery life is unbeatable. Since buying mine last year, I've maybe charged the battery 3 or 5 times, maybe, at total. The most it ever pulls is when the baby's first LCD is turned on, which is good enough to be useful, but you'd really want to use it more like you're using a film camera than a digital camera. Speaking of resolution, this camera has a blazing 6,120,546 pixels, or as the reviewer puts it, I consistently print spectacular 12x18 prints from my D70 at my local Costco warehouse discount store, even from basic JPEG files. I don't have a Costco nearby, but well, should probably go check in on that. That was pretty dang good. I agree, me. One arguably clever decision Nikon made here was to sacrifice the anti-aliasing filter for increased sharpness. Now, I don't know what other photo processing wizardry they did, but even compared to Nikon's later D5200, the D70 still looks sharper in my opinion. Sure, it does tend to get rainbowy, but at this resolution, it doesn't really matter. What 6.1 megapixels really teaches you is to avoid cropping at all costs. So you're gonna wanna frame as closely to the final photo that you want, almost as if you're shooting film. And that's how I ended up changing my shooting style when I used the D70 for a year, which we'll get to. And with all of that out of the way, let's finally shoot some photos, shall we? We'll be right back after this break. In conclusion, the Nikon D70 is a great camera for those looking for something cheap and quality while also advancing their photography skills. If you can take great photos of a D70, you can take great photos of practically any camera. Now, why do I feel like I'm forgetting something? Start by removing the 10 0 screws from the bottom plate. Then identify the 4 screws holding the sensor in place. Then remove another 4 screws holding the hot mirror. Remove the hot mirror and repeat each step in reverse. Be sure to seat the pesky data cable correctly, or else you get write errors. So in less than 5 minutes with a single screwdriver, this camera is now full spectrum converted. Where do we even begin? At the time of writing, I believe this is the bestest and cheapest do-it-yourself infrared camera for beginners. It is so simple to crack this thing open compared to any other camera. And as it turns out, the ultra-cheap DX kit lenses the Nikon D70 is so commonly found with are great infrared performers, specifically the 18-55 f3.5 5.6. The D70 also has the ability to white balance infrared JPEGs in camera. So if you're not a fan of editing RAW files, this camera might be for you. Now, if you are a fan of living in the photography editing mines, I've discovered the D70 has better color recovery than Nikon's own later budget CMOS sensors. The Nikon D70 will happily give you false color UV, while Nikon's own D5200 will have a bit of a stroke while attempting that. Less objectively, I think the Nikon D70's CCD sensor produces a nicer grain than later CMOS sensors. The D70 looks like a poorly scanned photocopy, while the later D5200 kind of looks bad. While I did say this camera was good for beginners, maybe take that with a heap of salt. This is a DSLR, and while I said the viewfinder wasn't great, now try taking a photo with a long-range IR filter on it. Second, removing the hot mirror will shift the focal plane quite a bit, and depending on what wavelength you shoot, that will also shift the focal plane. So, autofocus becomes not reliable at all, and manual focus becomes a guess to focus. However, you might notice these 2 tiny screws hanging out right below the mirror. Those calibrate the mirror, which in turn means you can calibrate the autofocus. I don't think calibration would have solved the focus issue for me, because my whole reason for converting this camera was trichromes. This isn't my go-to trichrome camera anymore. However, it did teach me everything I needed to learn, and it continues to be my only color UV camera. And as far as I'm concerned, will continue to be my go-to IR camera because of the sharpness and the wonderful lo-fi effect at high ISO. The simplicity keeps it relevant. It has a robust lens system, it's easily moddable, common batteries, all for an affordable price. Yet, what makes the D70 infamous isn't any of its technical specifications or accomplishments, it's the accessibility of it. It's a camera for the masses, which explains its current place. Without the sheer affordability of it, I wouldn't have been able to get one. And without the D70, I wouldn't have rediscovered my love of just taking pictures. When using such a fun, slightly wonky, cheap old camera, it, in a sense, reveals the direction you approach problems. It falls just short enough to require some creativity to make it work, therefore making the photos you do get way more meaningful. Yet it remains pleasant to use, daring you to smile, to enjoy yourself. It frees you from the pressure of the bigger, more competent professional cameras that downright demand excellent images. It's coincidental in a way that the camera you could most likely get for free is the most freeing. And God, does it feel good to be free.